There are stories that stay buried in the dark corners of history, and then there are the ones that whisper their way back. I'm Gabrielle, and this is The End Reel, where I tell true ghost stories, folklore, myths, legends, and strange cases that defy explanation. Real accounts retold for those of us who can't help but wonder what lingers after death, and what's waiting just beyond what we understand. So wherever you're listening from, turn down the lights and let's begin. The case is far older than usual, and in many ways weirder. But if it is true, as it is widely claimed, then it is one of the strangest cases in English legal history. One in which justice for a murder was obtained by the victim herself. The events in question took place in 1631 in County Durham, England. A young woman from the town of Chesterley Street, or as it was known at the time, Chester in the Street, by the name of Anne Walker, had gone missing. Not that those who noticed her absence were particularly concerned about it. Anne was a pretty young woman employed as a housekeeper by an uncle of hers, also named Walker, who claimed that she'd fallen ill and had gone to her aunt's house in the neighbouring village to recover. The local gossips had other ideas, namely that Walker and Anne's relationship was one far from appropriate for an uncle and a niece, that the inevitable had happened, and that Anne had been sent away to escape the shame of having a child out of wedlock. A good local scandal for the neighbours to talk about, particularly since Walker wasn't much liked, but no reason to worry. Then, 2 weeks after she was last seen, a miller named James Graham, who lived about 2 miles away from Walker, was working late one night. As he went back downstairs after refilling his mill's hopper with grain, he was shocked to see a blood-covered woman with 5 large wounds in her head standing in the middle of the floor. Gathering his courage, Graham demanded to know who she was, to which she replied as follows. "I am the spirit of Anne Walker, who living with Walker at Chester in the Street, and being got with child by him, he promised to send me to a private place, where I should be well looked to until I was brought to bed and well again, and then I should come to him again and keep his house. I was accordingly late one night, sent away with Mark Sharp, who upon the moor just by the Yellow Bank head slew me with a pick, an instrument wherewith they dig coals, and gave these 5 wounds, and afterwards threw me into a coal pit hard by, and hid the pick under the bank. His shoes and stockings also being bloody, he endeavoured to wash them, but seeing the blood would not go forth, he hid them there too. And now, James Graham, I come to you, that by revealing this bloody act my murderers may be brought to justice, which, unless you do, I will continually pursue and haunt you." For obvious reasons, Graham was reluctant to do as he'd been commanded. Instead, he continued on as normal, perhaps hoping that the incident was some sort of bizarre waking dream brought on by tiredness, or, if it was real, that what had happened in the mill would be the end of it. Nevertheless, he avoided being alone at night. However, Anne's ghost fully intended to follow through on her threat. She appeared to him a second time and angrily demanded to know why he hadn't gone to the magistrate with what she'd told him. Graham didn't reply, instead fleeing to where other people were. He still didn't do as he'd been told, and finally Anne Walker's ghost accosted him at his home and made enough in the way of threats to finally scare Graham into going to the magistrate the following day. Fortunately for Graham, the era in which he lived and his reputation as an honest, sensible man meant that the magistrate was willing to take him seriously. He had Walker and Sharp apprehended and sent men to search the area identified as the location of Anne's body and the murder weapon. Walker and Sharp both tried to make light of the accusations, not yet knowing that Anne's body had been found exactly where Graham had told the magistrate it would be, with 5 large wounds on her head. A miner's pick and a pair of shoes and stockings were likewise found in the reported location. There was further evidence against the 2 accused men. evidence from a more conventional source. Prior to her violent death, Anne had indeed been sent to live with her aunt, a woman by the name of Kerr, in the village of Lumley. Kerr confirmed that Anne had been pregnant, but stated that she'd refused to identify the father, saying only that he was an honourable man who'd take care of her and her baby. Kerr also stated that the last time she'd seen Anne alive had been when Walker and Sharp had come to her house and taken Anne away with them 2 weeks before Graham first saw her ghost. Regarding James Graham, it was quickly established that neither of the accused knew him and he didn't know them, which eliminated most motives for a false accusation. The surviving accounts of the case don't mention whether or not Graham had to provide an alibi for the night in question, but it is reasonable to assume he was able to do so. Walker and Sharp's trial took place at the next hearing. The presiding judge, Judge Davenport, heard all the testimony relating to the case, including that of James Graham. However, Anne Walker was apparently unwilling to leave the outcome of the trial up to the living. The foreman of the jury stated under oath that during the trial he saw the likeness of a child stood upon Walker's shoulders, and there were rumours that Davenport had been visited himself by Anne's ghost, the man in question being noticeably affected by an immense sense of concern and uneasiness. Walker and Sharp maintained their innocence throughout the trial, but it didn't do them any good. The jury found them guilty and, perhaps because of the supernatural aspects of the case, Davenport broke with tradition by immediately rising and passing the death sentence after hearing the verdict. Something which had never happened before and never happened again in County Durham, where it was customary to not pass sentence until the closure of the hearing. Did Anne Walker really bring her own killers to justice from beyond the grave? Or was the truth of what happened something more mundane? We'll likely never know. Too much time has passed for it to be possible to settle the matter one way or another. But if Anne's ghost really was involved in the events in question, then Walker and Sharp being sent to the gallows must have satisfied her, because after that there were no more reports of anyone seeing her. Hopefully she was finally able to rest in peace. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed tonight's story, make sure to subscribe, follow, leave a comment with your thoughts below, or leave a review if you're listening as a podcast. It helps more curious souls find their way right here. New episodes drop regularly, each one a dive into the strange, the haunted, and the things we were never meant to understand. Until next time, keep your lights low, your curiosity high, and stay tuned for the next episode of The End Reel.